So proud of you, Alex. Let me tell you, because I've been telling everybody, like, yeah, because you know I'm a fan of you. I have certain friends. Really, I love all my friends, but I have certain friends where I'm just fans of them. And just because, no, like for real, just because, going after dreams and stuff like that, that's not an easy thing. So when I see you all constantly going for it, and not just going for it, but like y'all are taking Jesus with you. Like I could feel the light. Y'all don't even gotta say his name. And I'm like, Holy Spirit, what you doing? So I've been watching you, and I'm like, so this is how I introduce you now. I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, I have such a wonderful friend. I love her. I call her Jelly Bean, but her name is Alex, and she's an up-and-coming actress.
I wish everybody would introduce me like that.
That's how I introduce you to people.
There she goes, championing others before herself. Classic Dee. Look, try to sit down with Dee for a conversation that lasts less than 2 hours. There was so much juice in this call, I will do my best to narrow it down. Like Autumn, I met Dee while volunteering in 12 Stone Student Ministry, and we connected right away.
What is this jelly bean business?
But that's so cool, because that's how we met. Like, I love how we met each other. That day was fantastic. Like, we just sat there and we started jumping.
Oh my gosh.
It was amazing. The energy was amazing. And then because you dressed up like a pack of Jelly Belly for Halloween, that was awesome.
My favorite costumes. I gotta redo it. It's gonna be another one.
That costume was fantastic.
If you can't tell already by the way Dee talks about her friends, she's all about encouragement. In fact, she wrote a book about it. Dee is a self-published author of a 30-day devotional.
Yeah.
Well, you wrote a book.
I did. It was like, like I said, I've always written. I've always like, I'll just sit there and especially since I said yes to Jesus. I mean, I would wake up and the Holy Spirit would tell me to write something. I'd wake up fresh on my mind and he'd be like, write. And I'll just sit there. Whatever he would pour in, I would just write it and I'll put it to the side because I didn't know it was. I thought I was journaling, or something like that. And so, I would say probably it was like a good 3 years of doing that straight, where he would wake me up, he would give me something to write, whatever. But this particular book, the Encourage Growth book, is a devotional. I didn't mention that. It's a devotional. But, with that one, he said I was going to write 2 books. And I sat there and I was like, that's interesting. And I was like, so not sure. So immediately in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to write this epic book because God told me I was going to write this epic book. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, and write. Nothing, right? Nothing for a good minute. And then it was like, the Holy Spirit said, you already have the material. And it was all the stuff that he woke me up and told me to write. Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah. So that's why I tell people it was 3 years in the making with Encourage Growth. I didn't know what he was doing. And so I kind of went and I said, okay, well, let's see the material. And I realized I have, because I did the first book, but I had enough material for 2 books.
Devotion.
Mm-hmm. And that got me. Sometimes I think God leaves little clues and breadcrumbs for me, and it's not until I look back that I realize what he was preparing me for. I love hearing about Dee's writing process. The journey we take while we're going after our dreams doesn't always feel easy, but we can struggle through and lean on God and our people.
Allow the things that you went through when you were growing up, all those experiences and stuff, you're either going to let that stuff bury you down, or you're gonna use it in a positive way in the relationships that you have that are around you, right? So for me, encouragement was something that I needed, like my mom was awesome. Let me just tell you, okay? My mother is an angel, and I know we all say that about our parents. Well, a lot of people. but like my mom, for real, like I love her. She was that light for me when I was growing up. And there were a lot of things that told me that I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that, and I wasn't good enough for this and I wasn't good enough for that. My mom would always just pour her love into me, and she'd be like, no, you can, don't listen to them, whatever it was. Like, she was always positive.
Seems like that love and support has really translated into who Dee is today. This rock star is a self-published author and an artist. Dee creates beautiful, inspirational, and okay, hang on. Thinking of the word here. What is it? Encouraging art. I know, I'm cheesy. Bear with me.
One of the things I tell people with the art, I love art and I love colors and things like that. And I always, especially in mixed media, because I do mixed media, and I love all the broken pieces. I sit there, give me a day where I could just rip paper up.
Oh, great.
Love it, okay? I will rip it up, and you have all these broken pieces, all these, different things that you use to have it come together into this big, beautiful, where it's like, whoa, okay, I didn't know you get that from that. It's kind of like when they talk about the cake, when you make a cake and the flour is nasty by itself. Sugar might be all right, but but you're right. So you have all these different ingredients that alone, they're not the best, but when they come together, it makes that delicious cake everybody's eating. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of see life like that when it comes to God, because all of us are a brushstroke in this bigger picture that He has.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so one color by itself may not necessarily, do too much on anything, like on a canvas, but when you start bringing all the other colors in, and then you realize that you're a brushstroke, you're a beautiful, bright color in this big masterpiece that God has. Like, I love that. Like, that's how I see people.
Dee just launched her website, and I'm so proud.
If you haven't seen it, www.therightjourneyart.com. therightjourneyart.com.
So on her website, she talks about letting fear get in the way of sharing her art. Talking to Dee about chasing dreams just felt so validating. It's a tricky path that can lead to a lot of self-doubt and this constant feeling of just needing to grasp some kind of control over your life.
In life, I think we try to figure things out on our own.
Yeah.
And like, it's not like God is not that. He didn't make it that hard. He didn't make it that hard for us. All we gotta do is ask Him.
Yeah. So, it's like that you immediately get this like thought of, doing something, and then you're like, okay, I have to figure it out now.
Right.
I think that's where a lot of the times we get sort of lost in the weeds, is because we're trying to figure it out, and then we're not like like you take steps and you do things, but you also just kind of have to sit back and be like, all right, well, when it comes, I'll know, and then I'll take that step and I'll do it.
Exactly. It's like God gives us these dreams, and then we want to be team takeover when He's the one that gave it to us.
Yes.
I want to leave with just this final bit from our conversation. So Dee mentioned quite a few people who are a part of her community throughout our entire conversation, but one story really struck me. I truly believe that creating relationships and connections is so important, not just in terms of networking, but it's important for our souls and our hearts. I'll let Dee tell you about her connection with Bonnie, and I think you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Shout out to Bonnie, because she gave me an opportunity, and that was a divine thing. That was a huge part of the right journey.
Yeah.
I had prayed about that. It was very early on, and I was selling on Etsy, And no shame to Etsy. Etsy is good for some people, but it just wasn't for me. And I had said, you know what, Lord, I would really love to sell in a boutique or something. And I actually met Bonnie probably a little bit less than a month from that. I met Bonnie in Revolutionaries Market in downtown Monroe. Me and Mom were just down there in Monroe, just hanging out, and somebody recommended her spot, and we went in there, and it was like, and my mom was like nudging me, and she's like, are you seeing what I'm seeing? And I'm like, I can see my art in here. Like I could visually see that me being in there. And I remember I went to her, and she didn't have a space for me at the time, because I asked her, I'm so nervous to ask, but I asked, about, you taking any people in? Yeah. And we just had a long conversation. It was just, we cried, and it was such a divine and loving moment. And I remember, I think it was like 2 weeks later, Bonnie had emailed me, and she actually made room for me. She made room for me to be able to come in.
I just love this thought. Bonnie made room for Dee. It's so much more than making room in her store for Dee to sell her art. She made room for Dee. She created opportunity for Dee. She welcomed her in. What if we all took some inventory of our space and our tools, and we made room for each other, and we helped each other succeed, and we had conversations about our dreams and the things that we really love and want for our lives? I want to make room for you. That's cheesy. I want to make room for everybody.